So this is the first game of the finals, which is best of three. And in this one, both players are going to be playing the same pre-made deck because they both selected that in their lineup. I have a friend here co-commentating, and we both sort of understand the game well enough to give some insight and talk about what's going on. So the opener for both of these decks is going to be playing Crossed Bones, hoping to take a round win with that. Alternatively, you can play Stars in an effort to have 3 mana next round, but very little round 2 plays would take advantage of that mana. It's more common to see something like this where you play Crossed Bones turn 1, and then round 2 you're going to play Stars in an effort to get 4 mana moving forward.
So I see that this turn is taking longer than previous turns. So what's the thought process here? What's going on?
So in Celestial, you can pass in an effort to get more information about what your opponent is going to do. And we see here that Eldrad has only 1 Crossed Bones. Now, if he had known that the opponent was going to play 3 cards, he would think that they probably have more points, and he should hold on to the Crossed Bones. There ended up not being some line where he can actually check for that reasonably, but he did have the option of passing a little bit earlier, just trying to save card advantage.
That makes sense.
And in this position, both players have 4 mana. Both players know that they have 4 mana. I think they can also reasonably assume that they both have Dinosaur Bones, because it's a little bit iffy to spend your stars if you don't have that in hand also. They're both also coming up on around the 12 card and discard pile mark, and so playing Anubis and Sarcophagus becomes relevant at this point.
So generally when people play the stars, do they have an idea of like what's going to happen next, or is this something that there's a heuristic for?
You can play it as sort of a gamble, hoping that you'll draw a card that will end up spending that mana. Especially in a deck like this that runs a lot of 4s, that's a reasonable thing to do. You are also sort of relying on getting Broken Bones in your discard pile at a rate where it's like worth that gamble for you. But in general, in most decks, you wouldn't just play it willy-nilly. So now we see Anubis come out. And I think Eldrad is trying to get just a little bit more points than his opponent without spending too many resources. So he might pass after just playing these 2 cards, depending on what he thinks his opponent has. He also knows that he has more mana this round than his opponent, and so maybe his opponent is going to just expect him to win and therefore not spend a bunch of resources. A lot of the early rounds feel pretty like low effort. You just play the cards that you're drawing, but then around here, around like 5, 6, 7, it gets a lot more interesting. So this play feels fairly obvious. He's going to get 7 points, be able to continue playing Anubis. He could play Stars if he really wants the win, but it doesn't seem that worth all the effort. So he could end up with 18 points next round if he really wanted, but then he'd be pretty out of gas. And here we see his opponent just play Anubis plus Crossbones. Even though he most likely had Sarcophagus, he doesn't want to spend all of his points all at once.
So it seems like a pattern in these rounds is that you play Anubis and then in the following round you play Sarcophagus, but doing both at the same time would be like a waste of mana, presumably.
Well, especially in the mirror match, it really depends on what you think your opponent has. I think how the cards got drawn this time, Eldrad was able to play Anubis before he had the mana to Sarcophagus. So, like, they both knew they weren't going to have a 14-point round. And so it gets played out a little bit slower over more rounds. But you do sometimes see, like, round 6 happens, you play Anubis Sarcophagus and just blow out everything else. They're also coming up on the shuffle, so if they want to keep Anubis in hand to play it and then hope for drawing Sarcophagus, that's a consideration. Or if they just expect their opponent to play all their points, they can match that. There's a lot of decision points that happen with the shuffle. It also ends up being a good idea not to play a lot of bone cards, because you'll end up drawing these dead, broken bones, and you have much less of a chance to draw into the cards you really want to. So you see Eldrad's discard pile is a little bit thinner, which is good for him. He's also opting to Sarcophagus a Sarcophagus, which is a lot fewer points, but it means he gets to delay his shuffle a little bit longer. And he knows that his opponent can't delay his shuffle that much longer, because he can only put one card back on top, and then he's naturally going to draw 2. So this line is taking that into account. I think his opponent must have stuffed fewer draws. So if you can't draw cards because you have 5 in hand or 6 in hand, you'll just draw 1 fewer card. And that's why the difference in deck sizes is happening right now.
And this is a consequence of just passing more times, or just playing fewer cards?
Yeah, just playing 1 card in a round, and then having 5 cards. You'll end up drawing 1 card naturally, and then the second card you won't draw. And so you're not pulling through your deck as quickly. There are some matchups where this deck just totally ignores what the opponent is doing and steamrolls them, but in the mirror you end up having to think about these things, like which line is my opponent going to go down? What have they indicated so far? Do I think they have Sarcophagus in hand? All of these things will change how you play. And you see a really lucky draw here. So Sarcophagus came back. Oh, no, sorry, that was guaranteed. He Sarcophagus the Sarcophagus. And now I think the opponent has 4 cards from the original shuffle and 2 from the new one. And really good odds that those are broken bones. So here we see him looking at the cards that were shuffled. It's really just Anubis that would be good for him to draw. And his opponent's deep in the tank. He's thinking about how to play this out. So 1 more Sarcophagus, and this gets back Anubis. And then once the shuffle happens, Eldrad will have Anubis to play, presumably winning a round. And that also makes the Sarcophaguses worth points.
So it seems like in this game, delaying the shuffle really enables winning the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, this deck gets a lot weaker after the shuffle. Things changed a little bit after the patch, so Broken Bones now draw you a card. So they're still sort of a negative, but it's not a huge deal. But yeah, this deck in particular will do anything to slow down the shuffle. Here you see it just happened, and Eldrad is looking to win 2 more, which he definitely has the gas for, and he did get the lucky draw of Sarcophagus. That was like a 1 in 9, I guess. And because the discard piles are shuffled, Anubis is now at full cost, so probably nothing beats what he's about to play here. These 12 points. We also see that the opponent played Stars last round. And he's probably not going to spend the mana. I think that's more likely in an effort to free up space in his hand. And he's also looking for the lucky draw of getting Anubis so that it can use his Sarcophagus. And his opponent definitely has to play something here. So it was probably, he was thinking, do I play the Broken Bones, just getting rid of trash, or do I attempt to play points, thinking that my opponent won't play as many points? Now, how Eldrad is playing this will punish the opponent playing points. He should be able to deduce, I think that Eldrad will play Anubis here.
I guess he knows that Anubis is in the deck.
Yeah, he knows it's in his hand because he Sarcophagused it. Oh, wow, okay, so he did guess this correctly. Because he would have been very punished if Eldrad played Crossbones, Dinosaur Bones, Dinosaur Bones. And we see the second Sarcophagus come, which was, again, very, very lucky. So if he wins this one, and then wins another, it's over. But if one player wins then the other, then it'll be 4-4, and a player has to win by 2. I think he's probably fine with that, though. He has a lot of sustained point gain. 7 points turn after turn. Or actually 6 points, right? Because Sarcophagus gets itself back if he plays it that way. So the first one is 7, getting back Anubis. And his opponent didn't play any points that round, so he's probably trying to contest right here. And it's 12 points he has to contest, which he definitely doesn't have. Yeah. So Eldrad takes the first game, the mirror match, which arguably is the easiest.
In what sense?
Anubis is a very strong deck. I think Anubis is the strongest of the decks and has pretty positive matchups against the other 4 decks that the players brought. So this, while it's great for him, probably doesn't mean that much because eventually Kiva will win with his Anubis deck against something.
I see.